Throughout history, San Francisco has welcomed innumerable advocates and activists who have fought to make our city what it is today. The Neighborhood Empowerment Network Hall of Fame Award acknowledges the leaders that are no longer with us, but whose contributions continue to positively and forcefully impact our lives on a daily basis, whether we realize it or not. Carlos Gutierrez was born and raised in the Mission. Despite challenges in his youth, Carlos turned his life around, earned his bachelor's while raising 2 children, and created an organization called HOMIE. HOMIE is organizing the mission to empower youth, to transform at-risk youth and young adults' lives. Tonight, we honor the late Carlos Gutierrez with the Neighborhood Empowerment Network Hall of Fame Award. Receiving the award on his behalf tonight are his children, Cassandra and Elias. And we are so happy to have you with us here tonight. Please, yes.
Yeah. So I was in class earlier, and I knew I was about to speak, so I wrote a little poem. I didn't title it, and it's also not that very long, but here it goes. Late nights, a lot of late nights. Some of the simplest joys a kid has is coming home from school and enjoying that little sliver of time before your parents come home. For me, that sliver was always a chunk. Late nights. My dad never was a normal father. There was a lot of late nights. Nights I stayed up. Nights that my dad came home late. I remember our brown rectangular dining room table that took up a considerable amount of our bedroom, our 1-bedroom apartment. What I remember most about that table was not having family dinners on it. You know, I held a lot against him. How could someone come home so tired? Why the hell is he coming home giving me crap about not doing the damn dishes? You know, they're not my mess. You know, at the time I was going to high school every day and, you know, feeling alone, and you know, I was doing all this hard work, and this dude comes home and, you know, he impedes on my alone time, my sanctuary, and starts barking orders. But, you know, he goes to a job, you know, a community job, a community organization. I was like, oh, you know, that's not that hard. You know, you're sitting at a desk all day doing nothing, while I'm slaving away at this homework. And, you know, I told him his work was easy, and he would always reply with something like, oh, you know, I provide for you, and I do all this, and I always thought he was full of it. You know, waiting to grow up, you know, I had to, like, looking back on it, you know, I really should have been more careful for what I wished for. But I never knew how much my dad did, the people he knew, the ones he helped. I traveled to Berkeley, and you know, I met people who knew him even there. You know, and I even, you know, I'm a student at USF down the street, and I was at the gym, and some guy stopped me because I had a sweater with his face on it, and he's like, you know, well, it's an honor to meet you because I knew your dad. You know, at my dad's funeral, you know, there was a lot of people, you know, several hundred people, and I knew almost no one. You know, of course I knew the family and friends, but there were just a couple hundred people that I never met, and they all knew my dad, just coming up to me and saying, you know, he was the only one there for me at certain times. And, you know, I look back on that, you know, holding these things against him, you know, oh, you know, you don't do work. I'm the one who has to do homework and study hard, and you're not doing anything. But you know, it was almost like he lived a second life, but not in a bad way, just, you know, kind of just, you know, meeting people and helping people and doing all these things. And I held against him, like, not being able to have family dinners, or him not helping me with homework, or not going to family, you know, school events that your parents go to. And I would get mad at him for that, and I never realized how much he did for the community. And I guess if there's one thing I could say, it's, you know, usually when someone dies, they're remembered for a time, and then they're just forgotten. But this award and this ceremony, thank you all for remembering him and, remembering him when I felt like I was the only one that did. So, thank you.
Move this down a little bit. Good evening in Alalpa. So I do want to thank you for honoring and recognizing my father, Carlos. His presence is still and forever will be very deeply missed. It's going to be 2 years in July. It's kind of crazy to think about because one minute you're here, the next you're gone. But beyond the achievement of this physical award is the lasting effects of his actions towards the betterment and unification of humanity. He not just vocalized it, he did it every single day. Working with incarcerated youth or just people on the street that he knew growing up, and he wanted them to be cleaner from drugs, or off the street from violence, breaking cycles. He did everything he could to not really be a statistic. Even though he was in the beginning having me he was 16 having me, so of course he may have started off the bat a little difficult, but he did really well, I think, as a parent. And although he primarily worked in San Francisco, he demonstrated and vocalized the importance of being of assistance towards everyone. That the greatest sight to obtain was to strive towards justice. And one of the things he really emphasized was that until deeds were put into action, your words are useless. What are you doing to contribute? It's more than just saying, I work for homie. More than like, I'd like to help volunteer. It's, do you do it? And so, although his passing is still, for myself and those who knew him, it's still painful, but I think out of the grief that even though he's gone and I think he's ascended somewhere else, that there's still work to be done. Not just remembering his legacy, but just continuing that, not just for him, but for everyone else who strives to make this crazy world better. And that's what I'm doing myself, my brother, not just in his name, but because he ingrained that. What else is there left if we don't really work towards the betterment of the world? He was very diligent and proud that he was doing something. He didn't care about the recognition. He just wanted to make sure that he was doing something, It's kind of funny that way. But I guess the last thing I'll say is that I miss him a lot, but that regardless, I use his life, his short 38 years of life, to remind myself that you can do a lot in a short amount of time. And you live day to day trying to make the world better and through actions, through compassion and understanding, patience, not just politically, but through the kindness of because you want to. So thanks, Pops. Hope that we win the Super Bowl this Sunday. He was a big Niners fan, so Carlos presente. Thank you.